Hello everyone, hope you're all doing great. I'm F. Merlin Rodrigues and today we are going to start this poem, What It's Like to Be Transgender by Lee Mokobe. Lee Mokobe was born in 1996 in Cape Town, South Africa. Mokobe is an award-winning slam poet. Poetry means it's a form of performance poetry that combines the elements of performance, writing, competition, and audience participation. It is performed at events called Poetry Slam or simply Slam. The name Slam came from how the audience has the power to praise or sometimes destroy a poem, and from the high-energy performance style of the poets. Lee Mokobe is an award-winning slam poet, and he's also the founder of Vocal Revolutionaries, a volunteer-run literary organization focused on empowering the youth of South Africa to find their voice through art. In 2013, Mokobe's South African slam poetry team, which was also named Vocal Revolutionaries, made it to the final stage of the Brave New Voices global poetry competition, an event of American Poetry Slam which began in 1998 in Chicago. The first team from the African continent to compete, and they became the second among the 55 teams in the world that were shortlisted. In 2015, Lee came out as a transgender male. Now, Mokobe works as a teaching artist across the United States. Lee Mokobe has been a TED Fellow since 2015. Being a performer, he wrote several plays and has made a few short films. What It's Like to Be Transgender, the poem that we have to learn, is a soul-bearing poem about what it feels like to be a transgender in a highly gendered culture. The poem powerfully addresses the gender identity issues in the context of transphobia and the increased suicide rates among the transgender people. Transphobia means dislike or prejudice against transsexual or transgender people. So let's start reading the poem, What It's Like to Be Transgender. So let's start reading and analyzing the poem. The poet starts like this. The first time I uttered a prayer was in a glass-stained cathedral. I was kneeling long after the congregation was on its feet. Dipped both hands into holy water, traced the Trinity across my chest, my tiny body drooping like a question mark all over the wooden pew. So let's analyze still here. He says the first time he uttered a prayer, he said a prayer was in a glass-stained cathedral. Glass-stained cathedral means a cathedral which has glass, which has paintings on it. Cathedral means church. So we could see here the poet says, the first time I uttered a prayer was in a glass-stained cathedral. So he said his first prayer in a church. He was kneeling long after the congregation was on its feet. That means congregation means a group of people who have come to pray, gathering of people. The people have left from their church, but still he was still kneeling there and saying his prayers. He dipped both hands into the holy water, traced the Trinity across my chest. Okay, so he says that he dipped both his hands. Usually people used to dip one hand, most probably their right hand, onto the holy water and make the trace of Holy Trinity, that is a sign of cross. But he dipped both the hands, showing that he was very earnestly making his prayers to God. And my tiny body drooping like a question mark. So he was drooping, he was bending. Drooping means bending. He was bending like a question mark. His way of bending and saying the prayer looked as if he was standing like a question mark. Okay, his body was bent. It also shows that he had a lot of questions inside him. He was asking answers to the questions that he had. Okay, all over the wooden pew. Wooden pew means the benches which is found in the church. These are wooden pews. So let's continue reading the poem. I asked Jesus to fix me. So he's saying he asked God to fix him. Fix him here means to assign a specific gender role for him. And when he did not answer, when God did not answer, he befriended, I befriended silence in the hopes that my sin would burn, and salve my mouth would dissolve like a sugar on tongue, but shame lingered as an aftertaste. So he says that God did not answer his prayer, his questions of solving him, but God did not answer him. So he thought he will make silence his best friend in the hope that keeping silent would burn him, would burn the sins. Okay, he says, like salve my mouth would dissolve like sugar on tongue. So salve means an ointment that's been used for promoting healing. So like an ointment that's on my mouth and like a sugar that would dissolve on my tongue, I thought being silent would dissolve or burn my sin, but shame lingered as an aftertaste. But the silence did not help, but only shame lingered. Lingered means stayed back or stayed for a longer period as an aftertaste. But the shame was the only thing that he was able to taste. And in an attempt to reintroduce me to sanctity, sanctity means coming back to holiness of life. Okay, so here my mother told me of the miracle I was. He says that in an attempt to bring the poet back to sanctity, his mother told that he was a miracle. Said, I could grow up to be anything I want. So mother said he could grow up to be anything he wants to be. I decided to be a boy. So he says he decided to be a boy. So the question, the problem that he had was that whether he is a boy or whether he is a girl. His biological identity is different from what he feels inside him. Okay, so therefore he had these questions. He's asking God to fix him, but no answer. He's taking silence as his friend for quite some time, thinking that would burn his sin and he will be able to come back to the normal self. But unfortunately, what it was left was only shame. So as a comforting word, mother says that he is a miracle and he could choose to be either a boy or a girl. He chooses to be a boy. It was cute. So he says it was cute to decide to be a boy. I had snapback. Snapback means a sudden rebound or a change in direction. Toothless grin, you skinned knees as street creed, played hide and seek with what was left of my goal. So he says that particular time when he decided to be a boy was a kind of a snapback, was a change in direction. Toothless grin without teeth, the smile without the teeth, and you skinned knees as street creed. Skinned knees means so his knees were shown as street creed. Street creed means it's an informal expression for street credibility or the fashion that is accepted by the urban people. He played hide and seek with what was left of my goal. Left of my goal, his goal here is to become a boy. So he chose to become a boy and he enjoyed being a boy for quite some time. Okay, so I was it. He was a boy, and during his younger age, when he had this question of whether he should be or he's a boy or a girl, whether he should choose to be a girl, or he has this feeling of to act like a male, to be like a boy. So he chose to be a boy and he was happy for quite some time. So that's what we see in the first paragraph, but as the poem continues, we could see there's a lot of confusion and a lot of expectations that comes on the poet. So let's read the rest of the poem in the next class. Okay, thank you, children.